We have done the most expensive card for every Kanto Pokemon, and now it is time to head to their unruly neighbor, Johto. Compared to our Kanto video, we have a way shorter video today with every Johto Pokemon. So let's start with Chikorita. The most expensive Chikorita card is actually a McDonald's e-pack minimum card found in McDonald's back in 2002, from January 26th to February 24th. This Chikorita sells today for around $1,000. One of my favorite middle stage starters of all time is Bayleef. This Pokemon just so excellently captures the middle stage. I remember Ash's Bayleef from the anime, and to be honest, the older days of the Pokemon anime really just molded my beliefs and perceptions of Pokemon. The most expensive Bayleef card is the Unseen Forces pre-release Bayleef, which surprisingly only sells for like $20. I really think Bayleef deserves better than this. I'm surprised by just how many people dislike Meganium. I get that Bayleef was such a perfect Pokemon, but compared to grass-type starters we would get throughout the entirety of Pokemon, I really don't think Meganium is as bad as everyone claims. The most expensive Meganium is actually a really interesting one. Back in 2001, Pokemon was celebrating the Johto starters before we transitioned into Generation 3. To celebrate these Pokemon, they decided to run an event called the Starter Triple Get campaign. This event was a lottery run by Pokemon where people would have to show proof of purchase for free Pokemon products in Japan found within the Pokemon e-starter decks. By doing this in February of 2022, you had a chance to win this Meganium card, where only around 1,600 were printed. This Meganium is pretty expensive nowadays, selling for anything up to $500. If you guys do enjoy these videos, please take a brief second to subscribe. It really does help out and I would really appreciate it, but enjoy the rest of the video. If you guys watched my Kanto video, you will know that a lot of the cards found within that video were from the Legendary Collection, and thankfully that is not the case for this video. The cards found for every Johto Pokemon are considerably more spread out throughout the last 25 years of Pokemon, such as the Cyndaquil card, with the most expensive Cyndaquil being the card found within the Chikorita half deck, featuring a little Chikorita stamp in the corner of the artwork. This card sells today for $50. Compared to the Chikorita line, the Cyndaquil line has pretty disappointing cards found within. However, Quilava's, despite being a relatively inexpensive card, is actually really cool. This is the Quilava found within volume 16 of the Pokemon Card Trainer magazine, released back in May 2002. As I said, this card is actually pretty cheap today, selling for like $50. Which brings us to Typhlosion, where we once again have a lottery card also found within the Starter Triple Get campaign, the same as Meganium, with the Typhlosion card found within this lottery selling today for about $700. Typhlosion also has the Neo Genesis First Edition card that also sells for around $700, so they're pretty on par with each other. And for the first time in this video, we have to talk about Hisui and Typhlosion. Compared to our video on Kanto, we won't have to spend nearly as much time on regional forms in this video, and we won't spend any more on Hisui and Typhlosion. Hisui and Typhlosion's most expensive card is the Rainbow Rare V-Star found within Astral Radiance for $11. My favorite Johto starter though has to be Totodile. I was so happy to see Totodile getting something in Legends ZA. I feel like the Johto starters were largely left behind when it came to unique forms and gimmicks, especially in the more recent Pokemon games, and so for Alligator getting a Mega really just brought back some hype for Totodile. The most expensive Totodile card is the Reverse Holo found within Expedition base set, which sells for around $100. And with Croconaw, we have yet another cool card, an electric type Delta species stamped Croconaw, released alongside Dragon Frontiers. This card is super cool and honestly isn't that expensive, costing around $20. And to end out the Johto starters, we have Feraligatr, who has the cheapest of the free starters within the Starter Triple Get lottery, with the Feraligatr version selling for around $400. So we're done with the Johto starters, but don't go anywhere. Much like our Kanto video, this is where the video really starts to get interesting. We have some of the oldest, some of the newest, and some of the weirdest expensive Pokemon cards coming up, starting with Sentret, whose most expensive card is the Team Rocket Return stamped Sentret that sells today for $30. As for Furret, we had quite a few cards around the $30 mark, and the most expensive of all of these is the Reverse Holo of the card found within Aquapolis that sells today for around $35 to $40. We're gonna have quite a few E-Series cards in this video. The E-Series of Pokemon really went insanely hard when it came to designing excellent Pokemon cards and mixing the scarcity of these cards too, and you have something really special, such as the Hoot Hoot Reverse Holo found within Skyridge that sells today for $25. It was surprisingly hard to find pictures of some of the Reverse Holos from the E-Series sets, mainly due to how obscure the cards actually can be. Throughout this video, you're going to see cards that aren't Reverse Holos, but the most expensive will most likely be the Reverse Holo. However, I had zero difficulty when it came to the most expensive Noctowl card. Of course, the most expensive Noctowl card is the Shining Noctowl found within Neo Destiny, which sells today for $500. I actually love the most expensive Ladybug card. I feel like Ladybug doesn't get the respect it deserves. While yes, one of the worst bug types out there for just about any playthrough, from a design standpoint, I love its little arms and big eyes. The most expensive Ladybug card can be found within the Southern Islands promotional release with this Reverse Holo. Southern Islands was a name given to a special set of Pokemon cards released in 1999 in Japan, and then the West 2 years later. This set was originally connected to the second Pokemon movie as part of two collections, the Rainbow and Tropical Island in Japan. But by the time 2001 came around, Wizards of the Coast Coast decided to just release the Southern Islands collection, containing every released Southern Island card in one. The Ladybug card has become very expensive, selling for $100. As for Ledian, we have a pretty expensive holo found within the Skyridge set. Skyridge has gone down as one of the best sets Pokemon ever released, filled with crystal Pokemon, iconic holo cards, and more. And the holo Ledian is awesome, selling today for up to $200. Spinarak would not get very lucky within the Neo and E-Series sets for Pokemon. However, it would get a Team Rocket Return stamped holo card that sells today for around $50. Thankfully though, for Ariados, we would get considerably luckier within the Aquapolis set, where we got this holo Ariados card that sells today for around $80, which is pretty cheap for an older holo. If you like Ariados, this may be the card to get. As for Crobat, we have the Crystal Crobat. We spoke a lot about the Crystal Pokemon in my Every Crystal Pokemon Card Ever video, but I had no idea just how good the Crystal Crobat actually was competitively. Both of its attacks were incredibly powerful. It just pumps damage into your opponent's team, while also allowing you to push status effects onto them. This card is insanely cool and sells today for $1,000. Then we have Chinchou, one of my favorite evolutionary lines from Generation 2, with the most expensive Chinchou being the reverse holo found within Aquapolis, which sells for around $30 to $40. The first graded card me and my wife ever owned was a PSA 7 Lantern found within the Japanese version of Aquapolis. Unfortunately, this is not a card that we own anymore, as we did have to sell it a while ago. One day I would love to get this card for my wife again, and conveniently this is also the most expensive Lantern card, with the English version selling for up to $90. Which brings us to the baby Pokemon, starting with the first ever Pika clone, sort of, Pichu. For those who have completed a Pichu Master Collection, I have some awful news for you. You probably aren't done. The most expensive Pichu card is Rough. This is the Card Design Contest Televi Kun winner Spiky-Eared Pichu, one of 7 Pichu cards that were released as part of a design contest to coincide with the movie commemoration random packs back in 2009. Fans would be given a blank version of this Pichu card with only the Pichu and would then design the background for the card. All of these cards are insanely valuable, but most of them have never been sold. Even the Televi Kun winner card has only been sold very few times, with this card costing $7,500. For the first time and probably only time ever in the history of the Pokemon TCG, we can mash the next 3 Pokemon together into one card, as we have the Togepi, Cleffa, and Igglybuff GX Tag Team card. I love the tag team cards, and Cosmic Eclipse has some of the best cards ever released, such as the alternate art for these tag teams. Sort of. The alternate art for this card would eventually be released in the Small But Mighty Premium Collection, and has become really expensive, costing $250, which means we are 24 Pokemon down with 76 left to go. Thankfully, Johto is a very small Pokemon region, especially after all of the insanely long videos we have been making recently. But let's not ramble. Let's talk about Togetic. The most expensive Togetic card is the Light Togetic found within Neo Destiny that sells today for $300 in a first edition. And then we have Natu, whose most expensive card is the reverse holo found within Skyridge, which sells today for $50. And we won't be leaving Skyridge with Xatu, as we have the holo found within Skyridge, the final holo of the set, which sells for around $140. One thing I will say about Johto is I do not feel like we really have any bad cards yet. I'm not a huge fan of Legendary Collection, but I can see why most people are. The holo effect is really cool. I just love being able to jump back and forth across multiple sets, and it's time to take a pretty huge jump ahead for Marie to 2009 with this Pokemon Center stamped Marie card handed out at the 1009 Pokemon Center card free battle events. This card sells today for $50 to $60. And for Flaffy, we have to look into the Totodile half deck. Back with the release of the Neo era Pokemon, Media Factory and Pokemon were trying to figure out different ways to get people playing the TCG. Everyone loves to collect these cards, but a lot of people just really never play with them, which is completely fine. And the way they decided to get people into the TCG was through half decks. There were 2 of these half decks, the Chikorita half deck and the Totodile half deck, where the Chikorita one prioritized a variety of types within the deck. Totodile's half deck was primarily water and psychic types, and the most expensive Flaffy card could be found within this deck and is selling today for $100. We have spent quite a while on both Mareep and Flaffy, so let's speed up a bit for Ampharos, with thankfully a pretty simple most expensive card. The Dark Ampharos card found within Neo Destiny. This card sells today for anything up to $250. We have a couple of Pokemon coming out that were evolutions for Generation 1 Pokemon, starting with Blossom. I love Blossom. The way you have to find it in New Pokemon Snap on the Switch and the Hula inspiration behind it was incredibly clever and has made this a fan favorite grass type. Today, the most expensive Blossom is the Aquapolis Holo Rare, which sells for up to $150. I often forget that Marill is actually a Generation 2 Pokemon and not a Generation 3 Pokemon. I never really played Johto all that much, at least not until I knew most of the Hoenn Pokemon, and I always just assumed Azurill, Marill, and Azumarill were all Generation 3 Pokemon. The most expensive Marill card is pretty expensive. It is the Southern Islands Reverse Holo for Marill, which sells today for $150. And so we end the non-Hoenn Pokemon lineup with Azumarill, whose most expensive card is the Holo Rare from Aquapolis, which sells for $150. I used to despise Sudowoodo, but for such a strange reason. Does anyone remember Pokepark Pikachu's Adventure for the Wii? I used to love this game, and even to this day, I would call it one of my favorite Pokemon games ever released. But the one downside of this was Sudowoodo. In Pokepark, you could play hide and seek with Sudowoodo Sudowoodo, and being a little human at the time, I couldn't for the life of me find Sudowoodo. All the while it just kept saying its name, taunting me. The most expensive Sudowoodo card is the Holo Sudowoodo found within Aquapolis, which sells today for $130. And now we have the GOAT of all frog Pokemon, Politoed. I love Politoed, and it really was an amazing addition to the Poliwag lineup. The most expensive Politoed is the Holo found within Skyridge, which can sell for up to $275, which is really expensive. I was going to jump past Hoppip a bit until I found out that it actually has a really expensive card as its most expensive. This is the Japanese Hoppip promo, and it has a really weird story behind it. While in English we would see this card within Neo Discovery, in Japan it was actually given out during a short-lived manga series titled How I Became a Pokemon card. This manga had 6 volumes in total, each revolving around different Pokemon in every volume. The Hoppip card could be found within volume 3 and features a Gengar on the card too. This Hoppip sells today for $250. In comparison to Hoppip, Skiploom's most expensive card is really disappointing. We have the Skiploom stamped reverse holo found within Team Rocket Returns, which sells today for up to $40. And that brings us to Jumpluff, whose most expensive card is the holo found within Aquapolis. This is actually really cheap, selling for around $100. And the cards are just getting weirder from here, as next we have Apom, whose most expensive card might be the most unique of the video so far, with the San Diego Comic-Con Apom. This card was handed out at the San Diego Comic-Con back in 2010. Pokemon don't often attend Comic-Cons, and so this card is pretty unique, and surprisingly isn't actually that expensive, selling for a max of like $90. Unfortunately, things do not get much weirder with Sunkern, as the most expensive Sunkern card is the reverse holo within Skyridge for like $30. As for Sunflora, we are jumping decades ahead to the release of Silver Tempest, where we would get the Sunflora Staff pre-release, which sells today for up to $50. Also around this price is the reverse holo from Skyridge for around $45. Yanma is one of those Pokemon that desperately needed an evolution. Yanma without Yanmega is just not that good of a Pokemon, and upon the release of Yanmega in Generation 4, it finally had some purpose to it. However, Yanma has actually had quite a few expensive cards. 2 of them come to mind. First, we have the most expensive Yanma with the holo found in Neo Discovery, which in a first edition sells for $120. However, there is also the shiny found within Platinum Supreme Victors, which sells for around $75-ish. I just wanted to mention this card because I love it. And that brings us to everyone's favorite boy, Wooper. I love Wooper, and I think most people out there do. It's just one of those Pokemon that has somehow managed to become popular without any haters, and the most expensive Wooper card is the reverse holo found within Aquapolis, which sells for $120. And then for Paldean Wooper, we have the Paldea Evolved Art Rare, which sells for like $10. I personally quite like the regional forms that evolve into different Pokemon, as Paldean Wooper would not evolve into a Paldean Quagsire. In my opinion, this does not undermine Quagsire as one of the GOATs. The most expensive Quagsire card is the Misty's Quagsire found within the Japanese Versus set, which sells for $80. And now we are in the big leagues, the Espeon and the Umbreon. These two are probably going to have 2 of the most expensive cards of the video. So let's start with Espeon. Espeon is slightly overshadowed by Umbreon a lot of the time. I always preferred Espeon, but it seems most fans of a TCG lean more towards Umbreon and Espeon. The most expensive Espeon card is the Gold Star Espeon, which today sells for a lot of money. In a good condition, this card can go for up to $5,000. And so of course we have Umbreon next. Umbreon has received a lot of expensive cards. The Umbreon VMAX Alternate Art from Evolving Skies, the Moonbreon Holo from Skyridge, Umbreon Prime found within Heart Gold Soul Silver Undaunted, and the Prismatic Evolution Stellar Terra Umbreon. But what is the most expensive Umbreon card out there? Well, it is none other than the Gold Star Umbreon, which sells for up to $8,000. But if every Pokemon card sold for $8,000, the hobby would be unsustainable. So let's head back to some of the cheaper cards of the video, such as Murkrow, whose most expensive card is the Japanese exclusive Morty's Murkrow found within the Versus series, which sells for $80. As for our next Pokemon though, it is back to expensive cards as we talk about Slowking. Now granted, this Slowking card is not selling for thousands of dollars, but it isn't cheap. This is the Holo Slowking found within Aquapolis, which sells for up to $300. As for the Galarian version of Slowking, we have the alternate art found within Chilling Reign, which sells for up to $70. Sometimes it feels a bit weird to look back on older Pokemon cards that are holos for non-fully evolved Pokemon. Given that we received a lot of new evolutions within Generation 4, looking back and seeing holos for cards like Yanma, even Golbat and Onix, just feels weird. And one of these Pokemon is Misdreavus. The Misdreavus first edition holo found within Neo Revelation sells today for $250. Do not worry though, I won't be doing the most expensive unknown card for every letter. That would require an entire video on its own. The most expensive unknown card is the question mark holo unknown found within EX Unseen Forces, which sells today for up to $100. The exclamation point also sells for around this, but a little bit less. And so finally we have Pokemon number 50, the halfway point for the video. So once again, if you guys are enjoying this video, please subscribe and leave a like artwork down below. And what better way to do our 50th Pokemon than with Wobbuffet. And the most expensive Wobbuffet card may be the newest Pokemon so far in this video, the Pokemon Center stamped Wobbuffet, which sells today for up to $100. Right, let's speed through the next few Pokemon cards as they aren't that interesting. Starting with Girafarig, whose most expensive card is the reverse holo found within Skyridge, selling for $60. Then we have Pineco, who once again has a reverse holo found within Skyridge, which sells for around $30 to $40. And to continue our Skyridge run, we have the holo found within Skyridge for Forretress, which sells today for $150. And this also continues with Dunsparce, with the reverse holo found within Skyridge that sells today for $40. Finally, to finish our Skyridge run, we have the reverse holo for Gligar, probably my favorite ground type Pokemon. The reverse holo for Gligar sells today for $30. When it comes to one of the most iconic steel type Pokemon ever, we were actually a bit spoiled for choice with expensive cards. We had Steelix cards like Bruno Steelix found within the Versus series, Steelix EX from Unseen Forces, Steelix holos in both Skyridge and Aquapolis. However, of course, the most expensive Steelix card is the Shining Steelix First Edition found in Neo Destiny, which sells today for $550. Now, when it came to Snubbull, there were actually two cards that were pretty on par with each other for price. One was, of course, the reverse holo from Skyridge. However, there is actually a second card that sells for about the same, the Build-A-Bear stamped promo for Snubbull. This card was found exclusively at Build-A-Bears, and nowadays they both sell for around $40. And for Granbull, we once again have the reverse holo found within Skyridge, which sells for $40. I'm surprised that we really do not have that many Neo era cards within this video. I thought for sure we would be finding most cards within that era, but I think so far we have had more cards from the E-Series era, such as Quillfish, whose most expensive card is the stamped Quillfish from Team Rocket Returns, which sells today for $40. As for the Hisuian Quillfish, we have the common card from Astral Radiance, which sells for like 6 cents. Bankbreaker. And now we have a trio of some of the best bug types out there, starting with Sizzle. I was obsessed with Sizzle when I was a kid. The red design for a bug was super cool and really unique at the time, and giving this brand new bug type the brand new steel type was such an excellent choice for Pokemon. And the most expensive Sizzle today is the Rocket Sizzle EX, which sells for anything up to $500. The second Pokemon within our bug type trio is potentially the funniest and weirdest gimmick Pokemon ever created, Shuckle. Now on paper, Shuckle does not look like an amazing Pokemon, but with its variety of stat changing moves, this Pokemon could become a real powerhouse. The most expensive Shuckle card is the Janine Shuckle found within the Japanese Versus series, which sells today for around $120. And finally, we have the bug and fighting type Heracross. I loved Ash's Heracross growing up and wish that I could afford this Heracross card. The Heracross holo found within Neo Genesis, which sells for $160, which honestly isn't that bad. But now things are gonna get expensive once again as we talk about Sneasel. Now, finding the most expensive card for Sneasel was once again incredibly difficult. This Sneasel card has no real price out there because of how exclusive it was, but there is no doubt in my mind that this card is the most expensive Sneasel. This is the 25th anniversary Sneasel card. This card features the 25th anniversary stamp in the bottom corner of the artwork and was given exclusively to employees at the Pokemon Company, meaning it doesn't come up for sale very often, and when it does, it sells for such a huge variety of prices. This is definitely the most expensive Sneasel card, but I cannot find a price for it. So the second most expensive Sneasel card is the Rocket Sneasel EX found within Team Rocket Returns, which sells for $200. As for Hisuian Sneasel, we have the Cosmos Holo Sneasel found exclusively in the full 2022 collector's chest. This card sells for like 50 cents, which is way worse than the priceless regular Sneasel. Right, that was a lot of Sneasel, so let's speed through the next few Pokemon once again, starting with Teddy Ursa, whose most expensive card is the reverse holo found within Skyridge, which sells for around $50. As for Ursaring, we have the first edition holo found within Neo Discovery. This card sells today for anything up to $100. I actually quite like Slugma as a Pokemon. I get some people aren't huge fans of the design, but it's actually one of very few fire types which has a lava element to them. The most expensive Slugma is the reverse holo found in Skyridge, which sells for $35. Did you know that Makago actually received 2 holo cards within Skyridge? Not even Charizard received 2 holos in this set. Both of them sell for around the same price, with them both selling for between $100 and $120. And we won't be leaving Skyridge anytime soon, as we have the Swinub reverse holo found within Skyridge, specifically this card and not this one, which sells for $40. And of course, we cannot leave Skyridge next, as we have the holo Piloswine found within this set, which sells for anything up to $200. Thankfully though, for the time being, we are done with Skyridge. At least for one card, as the most expensive Corsola card is once again found within the Japanese Versus expansion with this Misty's Corsola card. This card was released in the Theater Limited Versus pack to celebrate the release of Pokemon Heroes, which sells for $30, which is pretty cheap for such a funny looking card. As for Galarian Corsola, we have the shiny version found within Shining Fates for $3. I feel like throughout this video, we have only really spoken about 3 to 4 sets. It's either been Skyridge and Aquapolis, the Japanese Versus expansion, or Team Rocket returns, where the most expensive Remoraid can be found, which sells for $20. And for Octillery is once again the Aquapolis Holo as the most expensive, except this is actually not that expensive, costing only around $70 to $80. So if you're an Octillery fan, grab this while you can. Given it is December, we should get a bit more festive, as we have the Santa Claus Pokemon next, Delibird. I love Delibird, and given it is probably the only Pokemon that pulls some inspiration from Christmas, that makes it really quite unique. The most expensive card that Delibird has is the Delibird First Place Pokemon League card that was released to coincide with black and white boundaries crossed. This card is really cool and sells today for around $80 to $90. I am surprised that Mantine did not get a full holo within Skyridge. It's still kind of weird to me that Pokemon like Yanma and Misdreavus did, and yet they got evolutions in Sinnoh. Meanwhile, Mantine didn't and got a pre-evolution in Sinnoh. The most expensive Mantine card is the reverse holo found within Skyridge, which sells for around $30. Which brings us to Pokemon number 75. We are now in the final quarter of Pokemon found within the Johto National Dex. These are some of the most expensive Johto Pokemon out there, but that won't be starting with Skarmory. The most expensive Skarmory is the Falkner's Skarmory found within the Japanese Versus set, which sells for $110. Can anyone tell me why the most expensive Houndour card is actually a holo found within Neo Discovery? Did Pokemon get confused or something and misread Houndour and Houndoom? For some bizarre reason, both Houndour and Houndoom would get holo cards within the Neo series, with Houndour appearing in Neo Discovery. This Houndour card sells for $200. As for Houndoom, we actually have a lot of expensive cards here. Cards like the holo found in Aquapolis, the first edition holo found in Neo Revelation, the Dark Houndoom found in Neo Destiny. However, the most expensive is of course the holo found within Skyridge, which sells for $500. And for the second time in this video, we have one of the Crystal Pokemon making an appearance with the Crystal Kingdra. This card was an amazing addition to the Kingdra card roster, and really is one of very few good cards Kingdra has received. I feel like Kingdra doesn't get the respect it deserves most of the time, and the Crystal Kingdra is super expensive, selling for $500. If you search on eBay recently sold for Fanpy, you'll see some of the strangest cards that just aren't Fanpy. Cards like the Art Academy Mew, the Gold Pikachu EX from Prismatic, and even the Charizard VMAX found within the Charizard UPC. I have no idea why searching Fanpy does this. The most expensive Fanpy, however, does start to appear way further down, with the Japanese McDonald's promotional card released back in 2002, which sells for $50. I love Donphan, and for a pretty weird reason. Did anyone ever play Pixelmon growing up? The Minecraft Pokemon mod? For years, I spent most of my weekends hopping on a Pixelmon server and using my Donphan. It was actually my starter and the Pokemon that I constantly had in my team. The most expensive Donphan card is actually really cheap, with the Dark Donphan selling for $100. It took way too long for Porygon to get a full evolutionary line. Porygon first appeared in Kanto before getting the Porygon 2 evolution within Johto, and then finally the Porygon Z evolution within Sinnoh, but we'll get to him in a later video. For now, we have to talk about Porygon 2, whose most expensive card is the first edition Dark Porygon 2 holo found within Neo Destiny, which sells for $150. I feel like Stantler needed the Weird It evolution way sooner than it actually got it. The reverse holo Stantler from Skyridge is honestly kind of mid, and had we got Weird It sooner, we may have gotten a cooler Stantler card to go along with it. This Skyridge card sells for $30. I genuinely had to spend a while ensuring that I had found the most expensive Smeargle card. For some reason, I had managed to Mandela effect myself into thinking this card had an Art Academy version, but it turns out it didn't. That is because Smeargle is the mascot for the Art Academy, as well as various illustration contests, and as such has never received a version itself. The most expensive Smeargle card is the first edition holo Smeargle found in Neo Discovery, which sells for up to $120. We are quickly approaching the end of the video now, and next we have Tyrogue, whose most expensive card is actually a promotional release. Since its debut in the 90s, Tyrogue has only appeared on 7 cards, so it really hasn't had that much of a chance to get an expensive card. However, the most expensive out there is the promo found within the 2002 McDonald's Pokemon cards. This card sells today for $40. I actually really like Hitmontop. I think it was an excellent addition to the fighting type duo of Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan, and it has had some pretty cool Pokemon cards, with its most expensive being the Bruno's Hitmontop found within the Japanese Versus expansion, which sells for $60. For only the 3rd time in this video, we have a card found within EX Unseen Forces, with the reverse holo Force Smoocher. There is no way Jinx was a popular enough Pokemon to warrant getting a baby evolution. Thankfully, it did not get a Sinnoh evolution as well. This reverse holo Smoochum sells today for $35. And we're about to start a bit of a roll with Unseen Forces, as Elekid's most expensive card is also found within Unseen Forces, with the reverse holo selling for $70. And we end the baby Pokemon added for Generation 1 middles with Magby, who is not found within Unseen Forces. The most expensive Magby actually comes from the Expedition base set, which really hasn't appeared much throughout this video, with this holo Magby that sells for anything up to $150. But it is back to Unseen Forces we go for the most expensive Miltank card. I really thought we would have seen more Unseen Forces in the middle and beginning of this video, and it is insane how late in the video we have come for this set to make so many appearances. The reverse holo for Miltank found within this set sells for $50. This is also around the same as what the Miltank from Aquapolis sells for as well. And so we are in the final 10. We have been going for a while, so make sure you let me know what your favorite card in the video is so far down in the comments as we head into Blissey. The most expensive Blissey card is the EX found within Unseen Forces, which sells for around $125 to $150. And now, of course, we have the three legendary beasts who are cats, just saying. Starting with Raikou, my favorite of the legendary beasts, whose most expensive card is the Raikou Gold Star found again within Unseen Forces, which sells for up to $1,100. You're probably going to notice a bit of a trend for the next two Pokemon as well, since we have the Gold Star Entei next, which sells for up to $900. And so that leaves us with Suicune, whose most expensive card is, surprise, the Gold Star found within Unseen Forces, which sells for up to $1,300. And then there were six, starting with Larvitar. Ash is the biggest fumbler in the world within any anime or cartoon. Bro had a Larvitar and decided to just let it go? How do you have a pseudo-legendary Pokemon and suddenly decide you are done with the Pokemon just before it starts to power up? The most expensive Larvitar card is a bit of a unique one. It is this Japanese exclusive promotional Larvitar card that was given out to passengers flying on any domestic or Nippon Airways flight between July 13th, 2001 and September 30th, 2001. Passengers could redeem their boarding pass for a 2-card set featuring the Larvitar and a Pikachu too. Nowadays, this card sells for around $100 max. Pupitar has not had a very good run within the TCG. It's yet to get any art rare, trainers Pokemon, or anything particularly mind-blowing. And as a result, the most expensive Pupitar card is the Stamped Dark Pupitar Reverse Holo from Team Rocket Returns for $30. Tyranitar has had a lot of cards throughout its time within the TCG. It had a tag team with Mega Sableye, a holo found within Aquapolis, but it has one card that stands out above the rest. The Shining Tyranitar found within Neo Destiny that can sell for anything up to $1,000. And so we have three left: Lugia, Ho-Oh, and Celebi. Two of the most iconic legendaries and one of the most iconic mythicals. Time and time again, I have managed to fumble the price of this Lugia card. The card changes price almost every day, and keeping track of it has become really difficult. The most expensive Lugia card is the holo found within Aquapolis, which sells for up to $3,500. As for Ho-Oh, we have the Skyridge counterpart to Lugia with the Crystal Ho-Oh, which sells today again for around $3,500. And so we end our list with Celebi. This video was actually a lot longer than I expected it to be, especially given there were only 100 Pokemon to talk about. I feel like when Legendary Collection is taken out of the midst, you have a much more diverse set of expensive cards for every Johto Pokemon. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and turn on notifications to be ready for the release of the most expensive card for every Hoenn Pokemon. But for now, the most expensive Celebi is the Shining Celebi from Neo Destiny, which sells today for around $1,200.